logistics of, or the terms of what the agreement would be. That happened later in the week and didn't get finalized till Sunday the 13th, I believe. So at that point, it was more an indication of what I gave an overview of to Chief Slowly and his team on what the discussion was, what they had asked for, and what we were going to pursue in terms of, or what we were going to start pursuing in terms of trying to get an agreement to move trucks out of the neighborhood.
So at that point, the deal was, if you move trucks out of the neighborhood, we'll facilitate a meeting with the mayor. So it was kind of high level.
That was the concept. That's right.
Right. That was the concept. So no details had been fleshed out at that point.
None.
Okay. So you exchanged numbers. You briefed the mayor about what had happened. And then what happened?
Well, about 2 days later, I think it was on the 10th, the mayor received a call or a text. I'm not sure. I never clarified that, but he was put in contact, or he was contacted by Dean French, and Dean French told the mayor that the mayor can speak for himself. But my understanding was that he was trying to help, and that he was trying to help to get a resolution to this agreement that we had. And the mayor passed on Dean French to Serge Arpin, and I believe they had a conversation. I don't know exactly what they talked about. And then Serge Arpin gave Dean French my number, and he contacted me and basically announced himself as a helpful third party that was going to try to mediate between the two to try and come up with an agreement.
Okay, so then you became the point person for that.
No, I became the point person to get to the place where the logistics were agreed to, but the actual negotiation of the terms of the letter that was eventually sent to Ms. Litch, and that she replied back agreeing to, was done mostly through Serge Arpin, the mayor's office.
Okay.
I was engaged in that, but the negotiations were happening between them.
Okay, so between February 8th and you have the meeting with the PLT members and Tom Marazzo et al. And then the 10th of February, when the call from Dean French comes in, was there any kind of movement on that deal between the 8th and the 10th?
No, it really didn't start moving till the 10th was, I'm trying to think the day, what day was that? The 8th was Monday.
Well, the 13th was Sunday.
Yeah, so the 10th was what, Wednesday?
Maybe a Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
That's something for Mr. Arpin to answer in terms of what discussions were taking place at that point. But things didn't really start taking shape till later in the week, early weekend. And it wasn't until probably Sunday morning, the 13th, that I saw a draft in terms of the terms that's in that letter that was made public.
So you weren't involved in the drafting of the letters?
I was involved in providing some advice on the drafting of the letters based on my discussions with police. So Serge checked with me in terms of where the trucks would go, some of the other information on the in the letter. But
so specifically, the letter talks about Wellington Street. Was that one of the points of discussion with OPS?
It was generally, yes.
Okay. So then, if I understand correctly what you're saying, on the 10th, Dean French called and announced himself as potentially being helpful or a potential mediator. And then the letters were drafted and sent, I believe, on the 12th of February. And in that time, you were having discussions with Chief Slowly. Was it Chief Slowly or anybody else within OPS? Deputy Chief Ferguson?
No, it was, there were a couple calls. The final call was before the letters went out it was over noon hour on the Sunday, the 13th. It was right to the wire in terms of when the letters finally were approved.
Okay, so they're dated the 12th, but you're saying they were exchanged on the 13th.
That's what I believe, but I could be corrected.
Okay. And so while they're being finalized, your involvement is getting some input from OPS and suggesting some wording to the letter, including the area where the trucks are going to relocate to. Is that right?
Yeah, Serge had various drafts. It was going back and forth, and I don't remember the drafts, but different language, and I was providing some edits and some advice on the final language in the letter.
And why was Wellington Street chosen? Who chose Wellington Street?
Well, that came up as part of the discussion initially, I believe, with the protesters, where the protest leaders, my apologies, the leadership, where there was no other place to put the trucks. There were very few options in terms of where to put the trucks, and the discussion was that we wanted to reduce the footprint in the area to get them out of the neighborhoods and have them more condensed in one more manageable enforcement area. And so Wellington Street was an option, but it was understood that Wellington couldn't accommodate all the trucks from the neighborhoods. There just wasn't enough room. So part of the discussion was, would some of them agree to move to a site, I believe it was in the West End, Arm Prior, there was some other site they had, if they could go there. They wanted to get onto S-Jam. We didn't want them on S-Jam. So there was discussion internally about the parameters of where they might go, and that's what translated into the logistical meeting that we finally had on Sunday night, the 13th, when Superintendent Drummond, myself, and Kim Ayotte met with a group of representatives.
Okay, so before we get to that meeting, before the letters were finalized, I understand that Chief Slowly had a chance to look at those letters. Is that right?
He received I'm trying to think if he received a draft or not, because he sent me an email asking me for an edit, but it was too late because the letter was finalized.
Right, and actually that's OTT 6985, so I'll take you to that, OTT 6985. So he says, thank you, Steve. But if we go down to the bottom, we can see, Steve, as suggestion, alter this line in the mayor's letter. As a departure of the 400 trucks from residential areas is a significant logistical undertaking that will probably take 24 to 72 hours. We ask that protesters stop asking more demonstrators to come to Ottawa this week and over the long weekend. So it looks like that highlighted portion of this week and over the long weekend was an edit that he wanted in that letter. Is that right?
That's right.
And if we go up, you say, hi, Chief, the letter from the mayor has already been signed and sent to convoy leadership. It just hasn't been made public, so can't make edits now, but we can discuss when we meet them.
Yeah, we sent him a version of the letter they obviously had, and he wanted to make an edit, but at that point it was too late.
And if we go to OPS 10664, we go there we go. It looks to be from Christiane Hanot, and she says, Steve, can you send me a copy of the letters we just discussed on our call? Redemo convoy negotiations. Thanks. And who did you understand her to be?
Who was she?
Yeah, Christiane Hanot.
Yeah, she's the general counsel to the police service and reports to Chief Slowly.
And she mentions a phone call that you had with her about the letters.
I think she was on the call, the noon hour call. It wasn't a phone call specifically with her. I think she participated in the noon call with Chief Slowly, Deputy Chief Bell at the time, Acting Deputy Chief Ferguson, myself. I think Kim Ayotte was on the call also. So we had a call at noon hour, and my understanding from this is Christiane Hanot is following up on that phone call.
I see. And this would be on February 13th at noon. Sunday. There was a call on the Sunday? Okay.
That's right.
And if I can take you to OTT 6990, it looks like on Sunday at 1:44, you sent those letters to Chief Slowly, Deputy Chief Bell, Deputy Chief Ferguson, Christiane Hanot, and John Steinbachs.
That's correct.
And if I can take you to OTT 7009. It looks like title is Police Contact, Sunday the 13th at 3:26. You say to Chief Slowly, Chief, can you please provide the name and contact info of who will be joining Kim Ayotte in the negotiations with the protest leaders to deal with the egress and, I believe that should be and, right? Relocation plan?
Yes.
Okay. And what is that about?
Well, when the letters were sent, we agreed that we would meet that evening because we wanted to get this going as fast as possible, and that they would send a representative group to City Hall to meet with myself, Kim Ayotte, and a senior police official to deal with the logistics, because Kim and I were in no position, as I said earlier in my testimony, to arbitrarily dictate where trucks would move or to be able to manage the relocation logistically. We needed police to be able to do that, to facilitate that, negotiate that, and ensure that the relocation plan was consistent with any future plans they had, or any safety issues, officer safety issues, etc. And so what I was asking Chief Slowly, and I believe it was a subject also on the call, that we needed someone senior to be part of the discussions on the logistics for the actual relocation of the trucks.
And who was provided?
Acting Superintendent Rob Drummond.
And what did you understand his role to be then? Just to, was he going to be partly negotiating what was going to happen?
Well, he wasn't negotiating. It wasn't really I suppose it could be characterized somewhat as negotiation, but Acting Superintendent Drummond's role was to work out the operational details, right down to where, when, who, logistics. Like he was leading that on our behalf when the group came to see us in the mayor's boardroom on Sunday night. And so he had the map out, and they were mapping out how it would work, who the contact people would be on the police side, who the contact people would be on the protester side. So he was basically laying out how that operation would unfold the next morning.
But by then, the idea that they would be relocating to Wellington had already been determined,
yes.
Right? Okay. And in your call earlier that morning, or at the noon call, did anybody on the call, Steve Bell, Trish Ferguson, Peter Slowly, did anybody raise any concerns with the arrangement that had been reached? Did anybody on the call, Steve Bell, Trish Ferguson, Peter Slowly,
raised concerns about the resource requirements to be able to enact this kind of operation, depending on the scope? He was concerned about his ability to do that, and he was concerned about what happens if we go through all this effort and it's not successful. We're back to square one, and we put a lot of resources into it. So we expressed that concern. The two deputy chiefs, the acting and Chief Bell and acting Deputy Chief Bell and acting Deputy Chief Ferguson both expressed that they supported this because it would reduce the footprint and make it more manageable for their resources, because they were spread too thin, covering that larger geography. And so they expressed support for the movement of the trucks.
And so despite Chief Slowly's reservations, did he ultimately agree that this should move forward?
I don't recall that he actually said he agreed, but he didn't object to the point where, because he could have obviously stopped it, but he didn't. I never heard him say, "We're a go." He was basically silent on that point. Right.
But he did provide you Superintendent Drummond as an OPS representative.
He did.
Okay. And so now we're at this meeting, February 13th. You said it was you, Mr. Ayotte, and who else was there?
I don't remember everybody's names that was on the list. Superintendent Drummond was there. I think... I'm trying to remember. Keith Wilson was there. No, Eva was there. Keith Wilson was there, I believe, but maybe not. I'd have to go back. You'd have to go back to show me the document. I don't remember the other people's names. Tom Barber was there. I know that.
Chris Barber?
Chris Barber, sorry, was there.
Was Tom Marazzo there?
No.
No?
I don't remember him.
Okay. How many protest individuals would you say were there? How many protesters were there?
I think there were 6 of them altogether. Okay. I don't know if Keith Wilson was there. If I saw it in front of me, I saw the document in terms of the notes that Acting Superintendent Drummond took, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know if they're available. They weren't available yesterday, but I'm not sure if they're available now. But in any event, there were a group of protest leaders that were there, you, yourself, Mr. Ayot, and we don't have a lot of time. So if you can just briefly maybe tell us what happened at that meeting, and then we will have to get my friends to pick it up from there.
Effectively, we discussed how it could unfold, what the expectations were, what we all wanted. The people that represented the protesters were clear that they don't represent all the protesters, so they're going to have some trouble getting everybody convinced based on who was on the streets to all participate and move, and that they would be going out that night and working truck by truck, talking to everybody to get them in line or aligned to support the movement, because it was a good thing for them. And they also made it clear that not everybody will want. Some people may not want to go to that other alternate site, the farmers area they rented. I think it was in Armont, I don't remember. And that they wanted to extend the footprint a bit more down to Deschamps, but we said no. And Rob Drummond was effectively leading those discussions in terms of where the trucks would go, how they'd be placed, and as I said, how that process would work in the morning, who'd be assigned out there from Ottawa Police. And so when we left the meeting, it was understood we had a map of where the trucks would be moved, what areas we wanted to clear out. And Rob went back then to talk to his command and the NRCC and his incident commanders to bring the resources required to be able to do that. And we left that night after a couple hours, and the operation started the next morning.
And I understand at some point the operation stopped. Do you know why it stopped?
Yeah, mid-morning it stopped because, and there were some exchanges. I think I don't know if it was a phone call or text with, I was mostly communicating with Keith Wilson at the time, where he was expressing that what he was being told on the ground is that there was miscommunication between some of the police officers and what the orders were, and or the operation was, and weren't allowing some trucks to move on to Wellington. Eventually that got sorted out, and they did move a number of heavy trucks. I think the count was around 40, but that's still in dispute. And a number of light trucks also left, and we ended up clearing a number of streets. But yeah, there were some communications issues, some logistical issues where some of them, my understanding was some of the light vehicles didn't want to move and were blocking other vehicles from moving. So there wasn't an alignment of purpose by everybody that was on all those streets. They had different reasons for wanting to stay.
And I'm just going to take you to the last document, OTT 7480. And this is an email. If we go down, this is 7480. Yeah, that does look right. Okay, let's go up for a second. Yes. So Larry Brookson, do you know who he is?
Yes, I do.
Who is he?
He's the, I believe his position is he's the director of the parliamentary precinct security. But I've known Larry. I know Larry personally.
Oh, okay. Yes, because the email is quite informal, so I figured you must have had some pre-existing relationship with him. Yeah. He says, "Hi, Steve. My office is looking to set up a call this morning. Wanted to provide you with some context of my concern regarding the City of Ottawa's recent decision, which led to Wellington being turned into a parking lot of 200 plus trucks. Quite honestly, Steve, I'm at a loss as how this sort of agreement could have been worked out with a clear disregard to security, especially considering that we just finished a bomb blast assessment, which included the threat of explosives being transferred via large vehicles, hoping we can find time in the morning." So is it your understanding that PPS, the Parliamentary Protective Service, did not have notice or information